Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal, because I don't want to do it alone and I've never met someone who doesn't want to make self-growth normal, then make sure to smash that like button. I'm glad I was finally able to get this book. I've been seeing it all over the place. I've reviewed his book Outliers last year. It was remarkable. Every time this dude comes out with something, it's not a book, it's a giant splash. Malcolm Gladwell is a beast of a storyteller, a communicator, and he is a stone cold killer at coming to conclusions that no one else seems to. And the way he explains them, it makes so much sense. And you're like, why has no one said this before? When I saw the name Talking to Strangers all over the place, around the time I started in sales, I was like, this must be a book about all the different things you can learn about yourself when you're talking to random strangers on the street or something. And of course, it wasn't. In fact, it was a very, very different topic that this book was about. I do want to say something of very high importance, is that some of the stuff in this book is a little bit graphic. I loved it, despite that, really only because of how much I learned from it more than anything else. But with people with depression like me who have experience with, like suicidal thoughts and such, for people who take any sort of like police brutality or child, that M word, that 4-letter M word that I'd rather not say right now. If you take things like that particularly seriously, a lot of negative reviews on Audible mentioned how alarming that can be, and I do kind of agree with them. Like, this book is very explicit about some stuff, and I think a really big reason for that, at least, is that if you know his writing style and everything, one, Malcolm Gladwell's storytelling is big and loud and colorful. So if it's about these particular things, it may take you to places that you'd rather not say you're used to, and two, you will learn something either way. I mean, come on, man, it's Malcolm Gladwell, like, seriously. I just wanted to bring all of that stuff to your attention beforehand. The review does not talk about the cases in depth like the book does. There will not really be any spoilers and super graphic storytelling like I mentioned before. Bottom line, this is a book about what we should know about the people we don't know. What it means to understand them. It seems Gladwell is always trying to answer some hidden question or questions of life in each book of his. A question or questions that no one asks at all. And if they do ask them, they never actually come to like one definite conclusion. But the thing with Malcolm Gladwell is that if there's anything other than his storytelling, it's that he knows how to come to that conclusion and present it like no one else. Like with Outliers, why are the people who are so successful in their fields, like they exceed those in the second place by landslides? Why is that? Or in Blink, why are we so quick to make assumptions and jump to conclusions? Not just that, but without realizing it. What causes that to happen? And the question with this book is, why are we so quick to misunderstand each other? What's very weird about this book is that the author decided to have not just his reflections of what strangers say, but he actually has recordings from his interviews with them. So it's not just him quoting them. And I think that does make the audiobook a bit more entertaining, keeps your attention. What I think is so brilliant about this is that it's not just a rare thing in audiobooks, for Gladwell, let alone anyone, but it's unique. That, and instead of just hearing his perspective, which I like to think for the most part has balanced itself out and sharpened itself a little bit more throughout his bibliography, you hear word for word and even tone for tone the other persons or peoples. There were only a few people in Europe, for example, in the 40s or 30s, I think, who actually spoke to Hitler and met Hitler and took time to spend with Hitler. Like Churchill and FDR allegedly never actually physically met him. Anyone close to their rank in power or whatever. But the very few people who visited him more than once and swore after hours and hours of speaking with him, these people had sworn that he had hated war just as much as anyone else. Why is it that spending more time with Hitler, you know even less about him? Some other stories about like Bernie Madoff and that one spy, something Montez, who worked for the DIA and Fidel Castro. It says that no matter how much we think we know about how to detect a lie and why, it's almost like we're wrong. It drives me crazy how much I bring up this book in reviews, but The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. Once again, it goes super in depth about this. Like how you don't know what you don't know. It's a fantastic exploration. And I think it's sort of an underlying idea behind the notions Gladwell is trying to explain here. He talks about the holy fools of society. The people who either know so much about everything that they think everything is a lie, like quants of Princeton. Or those who know so little that they don't even care, even if they did, about the consequences of what many of us like to call snitching or exposing. Like the kid who points out that the king is wearing a robe that the seller said was specifically meant to be worn by those who suck at their jobs. And the whole analysis about Sandusky, the Penn State coach, that was eerie. Like the recording of him talking in an interview about accusations against him was very like chilling. But like if you can actually handle listening to that, because some people, I don't blame them if they're not. A lot of stuff in this book particularly, this is definitely something it also has in common with his other ones, is that it makes you wonder about human nature. I mean, like, I think I've compared him to Robert Greene, author of the 48 Laws of Power, because of how they cover in their works the true ways of human nature, things that we can't even help. Gladwell will lay everything out and scream all of the facts right onto the table to tell you, whereas Greene makes like this theatrical demonstration out of each side of the story, and it's like we're left with no option but to understand the differences between the two of them. Something else is, there's just, the word is tone that Gladwell has in this book. Compared to his others, he almost seems angry. Angry out of compassion, but also impatience. He also talks about how idiosyncratic our emotional expressions are. So many different like sexual assault and murder cases, and how people don't remember things so they lie about them and they don't realize it, or about how other people don't realize that they're not lying. I mean, maybe he's saying we can't read each other's minds, and when we can, it's more by chance. If I disagree with that, I'll say this. It might be by chance, but I don't know. To a good degree, the one chapter about fraternity parties can easily sum up how I feel about sexual assault cases in universities. I just imagine Gladwell in a courtroom telling all of these students what's what. The one chapter about Sylvia Plath, which is a little scary. It's kind of eerie too. Why did he have to drop this at, wait, when did he put out this book? It's like September or something, right? I guess I just got it later than I should have. Talking to strangers. September 10th. Okay, so I guess it kind of makes sense, but still. Sylvia Plath's chapter, there's something I learned about called coupling. It's where specific behaviors are tied to specific circumstances and conditions. And coupling tells us, for example, about the Golden Gate Bridge, that it would make a big difference if a barrier prevented people from jumping, or a net was installed to catch them if they fell. A behavior is so coupled to a place, and we find it so difficult to accept this, and that's apparently the reason why they will put millions and millions of dollars into other projects that involve the Golden Gate Bridge during the 30 to 40 years last century, when over 1,500 people jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. More people than any other place of suicide attempts that were successful in the world during that time period. When you talk to a stranger or watch them in public or anything, the importance of the context in which that stranger operates is something that I have ultimately learned from this book is worth considering. But overall, like, my thoughts on the book, it's so, like I don't think I don't think I liked it as much as his other ones. I think this actually might be my least favorite. I still think my favorite is Blink. I think the main reason I liked it is because of a lot of different things that come out of Malcolm Gladwell. And it's refreshing to hear his perspectives on things like the Bland case and the suicide of Sylvia and Plath and what's her name, Anna Sexton? I know Sexton's the last name. And the Sandusky and Nassar cases. And it's interesting, but for him to take his, the way of Malcolm Gladwell and throw it at them is just very alarming and experimental at the very least. That, let alone the strange background sounds and the production techniques and stuff like that, and the audible version. So it's like a stretch from his norm, and maybe he did that on purpose. I will just say this. I would have much preferred a book called Talking to Strangers to be about all the different things that you can learn about yourself when you talk to strangers. To all of this. Belief is not the absence of doubt. You believe someone because you don't have enough doubts about them. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We default to truth even when that decision carries terrible risks because we have no choice. Direction 1. I recommend this book for... Who do I recommend this book for? It's not a book for anyone, I think, who's trying to get into Malcolm Gladwell. I'm 90% sure of that. When stakes are high, if you do not tend to trust strangers and what they have to say by default, I definitely recommend checking this book out. Direction 2. If you like this book and you haven't checked out The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb, come on man, you gotta check out The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. It's The Black Swan! Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below, and also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that will mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.